Adequate notice of the meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, Middletown Fax, Middletown Township Public Schools District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Mingley's.
Here.
Mrs. Skolasky.
Here.
Mr. Soborowski.
Here.
Mrs. Tobacco.
Here.
Mrs. Torres.
Here.
Mrs. Weinstein.
Here.
Mrs. Wright.
Here.
Mr. Capone.
Here.
Mr. Avila.
Here. Now I need a motion to go into executive session. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Judy? Opposed?
Now therefore be it resolved by the Middletown Township Board of Education that the board enters into executive session to discuss the following items: confidential matters for statute of court order, collective bargaining matters, personnel matters. Be it further resolved that the items discussed in executive session may result in board action when the board reconvenes in public session.
Okay, we'll now hear from Jason Woods from High School North.
Hi, so Jason couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here in his place. I'm Rashi Mopsiker. I'm a senior at North. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened in January at Middletown High School North. The following students placed top 10 at the regional DECA competition at Keene University. They will represent North at the state competition in March. Santiago Bermudez, Rashi Mopsiker, Stella Cutler, Olivia Podolsky, Caitlin Bronstein, Mia Martinos, Mia Minson, Emma Gomez. Student representatives from our GLP, Business, STEM, and Arts pathway met with the freshman class to talk about all the wonderful opportunities that are offered by joining a pathway. Scheduling for the 26-27 school year has begun. Scheduling will be taking place through March 13th. All students will have an individual appointment with their guidance counselor between now and mid-March. The curriculum department hosted an advanced placement and dual enrollment fair for interested students on Wednesday, January 14th. The Freshman for a Day program started January 13th and will run Tuesdays through Thursdays until mid-March. MHSN Diversity Club proudly celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day, honoring Dr. King's lasting impact on our nation and his continued influence on society. We hosted a CLIA information session for 10th and 11th grade students interested in the Keensburg Law Enforcement Academy. Congratulations to Cameron Uncle on breaking the school record in the pole vault with a jump of 9 feet. The boys wrestling team improved to 10-3 on the season with wins over Matawan, Allentown, and Petty. Senior captain Danny Benbrook became the 16th wrestler in Middletown North history to reach the 100-win milestone. The girls wrestling team competed in their first short conference tournament. Freshman Brielle Kosovic took 3rd place and teammate Amelia Ricardo placed 6th. This is the first time Mid-North has ever had a girl place at this short conference tournament. The boys swim team picked up a 71-64 victory in a matchup against Long Branch. An impressive first place finishes helped secure the win. At the Monmouth County Championship meet, both relay teams finished in scoring position, and sophomore Jonah Salvador placed top 10 overall in both of his individual events. Sophomore Ryan Smith finished 11th overall in 500 freestyle. The girls swim team celebrated a division victory over Long Branch, making their record 4-0. The girls placed 1st and 2nd in all 3 relays. They also swept in the 200 free, 200 individual medley, 100 fly, and 100 back. First place finishes earned in every single event by Maddie DeFranco, Olivia Imbro, Juliana Imbro, Nina Verani, Emma Gomez, and Riley Luna. The team also had a division victory over St. John Vianney with first place finishes grabbed by Juliana Imbro, Emma Gomez, Maddie DeFranco, and Riley Luna. Nina Verani and Camilla Peraza contribute to a clean sweep in 500 free. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now hear from Jessica Sorrell, High School South. Okay. Well, we'll move on. Now we're going to have a presentation analysis of facilities utilization, school boundaries by Ross Hayden.
So I'm going to introduce Mr. Haber and Mr. Amon in a second. Tonight, we are getting the long-awaited results of our facilities utilization and school boundary study. I just want to remind everyone that this is one piece of information. They are recommendations. These are things that the board has to consider in moving forward with the strategic plan, and certainly any recommended changes or alterations are going to be taken under consideration, and certainly feedback will be listened to from the school community. Tonight, it will just be our presentation. We are not going to do a Q&A because we want everyone to be able to absorb the information, really dive into it, and then we want to get you accurate responses and information. So we've done a couple of things and we'll do a couple of things moving forward. We have set up an email account for questions related to the study to be emailed directly to that email address. And we're going to create a running document with responses that will be updated live. And then we will also be asking Mr. Haber and Mr. Amon to come back for a Q&A session. But we want tonight about the board, the administration, and the community being able to just absorb and listen to the information, and then certainly giving them and everyone the opportunity to ask questions about the study and about the results, and ensuring that we get accurate information to you in a timely manner. So that's the framework. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Ross Haber and Mr. Tim Amon. Yep.
Dr. Alcone, members of the board, members of the Middletown community. Tonight, we're going to do an initial presentation of the demographic and boundary project that we began about 6 months ago. Over the past 6 months, we've gathered data, walked through the school buildings, spoken to administrators, reviewed a large number of data, waited till October 15th to get the official enrollment in the state of New Jersey for Middletown so we could project on actual numbers. We downloaded and geocoded kids so we can locate them at residences. So when we made arrangements, looked at things, did calculations, we had them at address points on the map. And tonight, we also incorporated the existing school boundaries on a map of the district. And tonight, we're going to give an initial presentation of the draft. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Tim Hammond to take you through the report.
Good evening, thank you all. I think one of the places that we would certainly want to start is just at the beginning in terms of what was it that we were looking at. Ultimately, this is a combination of looking at supply and demand as it relates to the schools. The supply side of things is looking at projections and trying to understand how many students that we are going to have in each of the individual grades, in each of the individual schools over a period of time. And then looking at how that matches relative to the existing facilities and where and in what instances, whether it is either in a building in general or at particular grade levels, where we may or may not have imbalances between the count of students and the available space that we have. And if we do have scenarios such as that, what the consequence of that might be and what are some potential opportunities to mitigate or to resolve any of those concerns on a go-forward basis. So what you'll see tonight is a combination of a conversation about enrollment projections, a combination about available space within individual buildings, how those two things match, and then what we would have to do in the event of any imbalance. So with that, I think this is something that everybody's probably familiar with, but I think it's always a good thing just for folks who are very aware of potentially what their own school community might be, but not necessarily as familiar with the rest of the district generally. What we have is an opportunity here to sort of see the full scope of what we are trying to manage and what we are trying to deal with. As Ross mentioned, one of the things that we do as part of this process is to try to digitize the existing school boundaries in order to understand within each individual area how many students do we have within each individual neighborhood, how many students are coming out of those neighborhoods, and then if and when we would need to think about any sort of a boundary change, What are the implications of that from a student count standpoint across not only just the macro student count, but across the individual grade levels as well. So we do that by again, digitizing the individual school boundaries, and then also geocoding all of the students so that we can match student addresses to their school location and to their school attendance, if those two things might be, if their school of residence from a boundary standpoint and their school attendance is different, we can see what some of those changes are in order to try to ensure that when we are looking at the impact of any potential boundary change, we've tried to consider the full scope of what that change would be. So with that, again, I think the place that we always start is we always start with the students and the count of the students that are available. What you see here is both a history and a projection for enrollment. We start in 2020, the 2020-2021 school year, and then we obviously carry through to 25-26 for the actuals. From 26 on out to 30-31 are the projections. And I think the first thing to just pay attention to is we have a relatively stable top. Ultimately, what we see is over the 5-year projection period, particularly out here, there's some slight growth in the projections, indicating more students within the district, but overall, sort of peak to trough, it's relatively stable over that 11-year period. So what that means for us is when we're looking at where the growth is, so when we look at, for example, the growth in the elementary schools, or we look at the growth in the middle schools, it's important from our perspective to understand where that growth is coming from in order to understand what schools are likely to be most impacted as a consequence of the 26 through 30-31 school years. And when we do that, one of the things that we would want to assess is what is the degree to the sense that we have any imbalance in the schools of the scope of any moves we would need to make from a boundary standpoint. And so the enrollment projections obviously provide the baseline for that, because underneath these macro grade level perspectives are all of the individual schools and all of the individual grades. So we are looking at this at a kindergarten through grade perspective all the way through the 5-year projection period, and then looking at that at each individual school level. And you'll see some of that as we go forward. If we take the existing projections as they are established on the previous slide, and we apply them to the current school setting with the number of classrooms that have been identified as available in each of the individual schools, we end up seeing a challenge at particularly 2 schools and a little bit of a challenge in addition out in some of the out years at River Plaza, where we have a shortage of capacity. What does that mean? That means we don't have enough rooms for the projected number of students that are supposed to be in. So what does that say to us? That tells us that we need to be thinking about, in some way, shape, or form, how to rebalance the enrollments at those individual schools to take advantage of some of the surplus capacity, which are obviously the numbers in black, in order to try to better balance not only the demands at each individual school, but across the schools in general. So what we see, and this is where this process becomes highly dependent on the details. What we see is we have, in the aggregate, we have a surplus of rooms across the district. However, at some individual schools, we have a persistency of a shortage. So from our perspective, one of the things that means is that means we need to find a way to relieve some of that shortage at Lincroft. We need to find a way to relieve some of that shortage at Harmony. We need to be considerate of some of the out-year challenges at River Plaza in terms of how to try to balance the needs. And ultimately, that is the process of looking at boundary revisions. And so when we do that, the boundary revision process we recognize is one that creates attendance at board meetings. And so one of the things that as we're thinking about this, we know the commitment that folks have to their school communities. So when we're looking at any kind of a change like this, there are ultimately, I think, three guiding principles that we're thinking about. In the end, what we want to do, if there has to be a boundary change, is we want to move as few students as we possibly can. Right? We want to ensure that in doing that, the number of students that we move addresses any of the challenges that we have from a capacity perspective for a long enough period of time that we don't have to do these changes on a regular basis, right? So we're looking at the number of students that we have to move, we're looking at the sustainability of the moves once they occur, and if we do have to move students, the other component that we're looking at is trying to move students in clusters where they are aware of, friends with, in groups with students that they know already. So that a student being moved into a new school potentially doesn't know anybody, right? That there is some clustering. And so the revisions to some of the boundaries that you're going to see are principled on those ideas. They are principled on moving as few students as we can, moving them in clusters, and moving them in order to try to support the long-term sustainability of the boundary. And in doing so, from our perspective, I think as we, just to revisit what the problem is and looking at particularly at Lincroft and at Harmony, what we end up looking at is starting from a baseline of saying students should go to the school that they're boundaried into. So that's our starting point. All students go back into their home school. Secondly, once we know that, what does that do to change the values, essentially the counts of students in the schools and across the grades? And what does that do to any of the shortages from a capacity perspective, and how we resolve that, and how we mitigate it? The solution that you're going to see tonight ultimately has a total of 5 areas being moved. Those 5 areas include 119 students. They are addressing 6 individual schools. They do 2 things. In some cases, they better shape the boundaries that are existing right now. In other instances, and across the district in general, they also help balance the enrollment. And what you see in the table in the bottom is essentially it's the puts and the takes that come. Sure. Yeah, certainly. So the table at the bottom incorporates the 6 schools that we've mentioned. The 6 schools that are identified are Nut Swamp and Middletown Village, Lincroft, River Plaza, Ocean, and Harmony. And you can look at this as sending and receiving schools. The sending schools, which are schools where enrollment is being reduced, are Nut Swamp, Lincroft, River Plaza, and Harmony. The receiving schools are Middletown Village and Ocean. And so you'll see in the table across the grades the number of students that are projected to be moved under these initial proposed options. And again, the total is 119. We have a couple of moves from into Harmony, and we have, in each of the individual counts, you'll see the count for each of the individual moves, you'll see the count of students by grades. So the first, and the area being moved is this area up here. It's a little tough to see in the purple. And this would be a transition from the current Nut Swamp boundary to Middletown Village. It's a total of 12 students, and you can see the distribution across. Again, just in case it's difficult to see the table, it's a single kindergartner. It's 3 first graders. It's 1 second grader, 2 third graders, 3 fourth graders, and 2 fifth graders. And ultimately, what this does is help create some capacity at Nut Swamp, and it uses some of the existing capacity that exists at Middletown Village. We have another move which is also into Middletown Village, and that's from River Plaza. Again, the purpose is the same, trying to create some of the existing capacity, and that's a total of 29 students. where the distribution is 5 at the kindergarten level, 5 at first grade, 3 at second grade, 7 at third grade, 3 at fourth grade, and 6 at fifth grade. There's also a small area in here where the existing boundary is sort of a nub going in, and in that portion, there's actually one student in that area that's incorporated into this one as well. The next one that you'll see is down at Lincroft. I think as you had seen in the initial table, one of the challenge schools that we had from the long-term perspective was at Lincroft. So the area that's being proposed here is the area across the highway to better both structure the Lincroft boundary and to take away some of the existing pressure on the enrollment. A total of 15 students are being moved there, including 2 kindergartners, 2 first graders, 4 second graders, 4 third graders, and 3 fourth graders. So the move from here is from Lincroft to River Plaza. So if you remember, essentially what we're doing is we're moving some students counterclockwise in order to both better use capacity and to utilize the existing capacity in some of the schools. Of the last 2, these are the ones that are moving from Harmony. Again, taking advantage of some of the existing space that existed from Middletown Village, we have this portion of the Harmony boundary that would be moved. It's a total of 26 students. Of that, there are 4 kindergartners, 6 first graders, 1 second grader, 4 third graders, 5 fourth graders, and 6 fifth graders. And then finally, we have a portion moving from the Harmony boundary to Ocean Avenue. This is actually a total of 37 students, and includes 7 kindergartners, 8 first graders, 5 second graders, 3 third graders, 9 fourth graders, and 5 fifth graders. Again, the purpose here is we have some long-term pressure at Harmony that we're trying to relieve. We have capacity at Ocean Avenue, and so as a consequence, we're trying to better use that capacity and balance those needs. And so in doing so, again, that's the total of the 119 students. And so the implications of those for the schools subsequent to the moves. One of the things that we look at when we look at the capacity of a school building is we look at it in 2 dimensions. The first dimension that we look at it, we refer to it as vertical capacity. That vertical capacity is essentially the difference between the number of students actually in a room and the target class size that we have for those rooms. So that gives us some understanding of what existing space we have. So for the sake of argument, if we have a grade where there is a target class size of 25 students and we have 20 students in there, that means we have available space for 5 additional students before we would have to think about adding an additional section at that grade. Right? So that is the vertical capacity question that we're looking at, driven obviously overwhelmingly by looking at and understanding class size relative to the target. And so you'll see some exhibits on that. The other dimension that we look at it in is horizontal capacity. Horizontal capacity is essentially the spread of the rooms across the building. So when we look at, for example, a school that might have 15 rooms in it, and we are currently using 13 of them for the sake of argument, that would mean we would have 2 rooms available to us from a horizontal capacity perspective. If we had an average class size or a target class size of 25, that means we could have 50 more students come into that building before we had to worry about any sort of overcrowding. Minimum, right? Because that doesn't take into account the class size difference as well. So when we are looking at trying to balance enrollments and balance capacity at each individual building, we are trying to understand and balance both of these 2 factors. We are trying to ensure that we are not having substantial impacts on class sizes, but we are also trying to ensure that we have sufficient capacity in the building to accommodate all of the students that are enrolled within that boundary. So when we look at the combination of those 2 things, we're going to start here, and I recognize that you can't see all of the detail on it. You'll see it in the hard copy document of this, but But one of the things that's important to note here is this line represents the target class size, that's 25. And so what we're looking for is instances where across the grades, across the schools, we may have one of these vertical bars that is up around that target class size. So for us, what we're trying to consider at that point is when we're thinking about moving a neighborhood or moving a cluster of students, what we don't want to do is move a group of students that would end up causing this bar to go up above the target class size and require an additional section if you don't have space for that in the school. So the balancing act that goes on as part of this effort is understanding class size, understanding facility capacity, and trying to understand how best to trade off both of those as we are looking at the projected enrollments across all 5 of the years. Because what you'll see as we go forward is we'll map this out. So this initial is 26, 27. This is for 27, 28. One of the things that you'll see again is we've got different clusters up around the target class size bar, but then we have some clusters where there is notable difference between the average class size and the target, right? So, and you'll see this pattern of some variance occur throughout the 5 years of the projection period. So if we look again here at 28, 29, we see the peaks change in certain locations, but in all instances across all 5 years, we have stayed under that target class size value. And so here is the 29, 30 values, and then finally in the out year, the 30, 31 period, you can see that we do have some, again, in and around that 25 value. So when we look at this vertical capacity, we then have to try to balance it against some of the horizontal capacity. This is the section counts that are occurring by school. So section counts are determined by looking at the enrollment in a particular grade. So for the sake of argument, we have 100 students. If we've got a target class size of 25, that would mean we would need 4 classes, right? We would need 4 sections. 100 divided by 25 is 4. So we look at individual enrollments that are projected across all grades at all schools for all 5 years of the projection period. And that's where you see for each individual school cluster where the section counts are. And we see general stability across, some are perfectly stable across. We have a little bit of volatility here. At Bayview, we've got a little bit of volatility. At Lincroft, and we've got a little bit of volatility at Nut Swamp, but not a tremendous amount. And so again, some of this is because we are absorbing the differences in grade sizes through that vertical capacity. So our horizontal capacity, meaning the additional rooms that we need, we don't end up changing that very much throughout any one of the given years of the 5-year projection period. So what does this mean in the end? Ultimately, when we combine those two things, when we combine the horizontal and the vertical, we see what we end up with from an available capacity standpoint at each individual school, right? And what we have based on the 119 students that are moved across the 5 areas, what we have is we have some surplus capacity, and in some cases we have as many as 3 rooms available at certain schools. And it's pretty stable across the entire projection period. We still have a little bit of a challenge here at Lincroft, but one of the things that we did not do at Lincroft is the resolution of this one classroom shortage is driven by the fact that the projections indicate that we would be 1 or 2 students over from a class perspective in every given year of the projection. So by 2030, 31, we have 9 too many students. And one of the things that we know that happens is you all are managing that on an annual basis anyway. And for us to accommodate this, for us to accommodate those 9 students in 2031, would have required us to move in the neighborhood of another 50 or so students in order to just accommodate those 9 kids 5 years from now. And so one of the ways that these considerations around boundary changes gets used is it gets real life tested against what you would actually do. It's very likely that in some instances what you would end up with is one section in a school that had 26 kids and the other 3 that had 25. And you would do that because you wouldn't want to create an additional section and have a demand for an additional room for purposes of one student. Right? That's happening on an annual basis where you're looking at the balancing between schools anyway. And so rather than try to find 50 additional students that we should move, I think we recognize that there are some existing management processes that would begin in year 2 that would likely resolve that challenge that's been identified. So all of this spills over ultimately, right? Because what we have talked about in depth is the impact on the elementary schools. One of the things that we see from a secondary school perspective, particularly at the middle school level, they don't do a lot to negatively impact the existing balances between the secondary schools, the middle schools in particular. However, it's also recognized that the middle schools are already imbalanced. So one of the suggestions, certainly that we have as an outcome of this effort, is once the decision is made on any sort of boundary consideration from an elementary school perspective, it's going to be necessary at some point in time to also be thinking about the imbalances that exist at the middle school level and thinking about the feeder patterns that are associated with that. And that doesn't get fixed as a consequence of any sort of rising 5th graders. So the number isn't adequate given the relatively limited number of changes to fix any of the imbalances that exist at the middle school level. So in the end, I think from a summary perspective, we have stable and slightly growing enrollment over the next 5 years that are projected. We have limited instructional space issues around where the existing projections relative to the existing schools identify a couple of schools that need some resolution, some mitigation to their what would be an overcrowding problem. The opportunity to resolve that with a limited set of about 119 students is available in order to balance it. It is available with some additional mitigation that would have to get done at Lincroft starting in the 27-28 school year. And then I think the sustainability of that solution over time would extend beyond the 5 years of the projection period. It's just for our purposes, projections are only carried out to 30-31. And then lastly, I think as we mentioned, there would need to be some consideration also of secondary school impacts as at least an element in the conversation of this. So with that, that is the introduction to the proposed boundary revisions. I think, as was discussed, there'll be another opportunity. There's opportunities to submit questions and to the email address, which certainly we will be responsive to as well. And then there'll be another opportunity now that folks have had a chance to see this to come back and to have another forum to talk about whatever questions the board may have.
Okay, we're going to open it up to public comment this time.
a motion to have a second one.
Second. It's one public comment for everything. It's on the agenda.
We just made a motion.
Yeah, there should be a security person that said they were gonna filter everybody. I don't know where they're at. Okay. Got it.
Good evening. Dr. Alcone, when did you receive the
I'm sorry, could you
slides?
please state your name?
Oh, my apologies, Amy. My name is Ashley Studd.
Please
and I
state your
live-
name and address, please.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Thanks. Ashley Studd, I live in Middletown. When did you get the slides before the meeting?
These, I just saw these.
You just saw them
This
first,
is the
okay.
presentation that they prepared for this, yes.
Okay. And then just a comment, I've been looking at the spending, like I like to do, and there's still like quite a few things that don't seem safety related that are quite big, so I'm just, I can send the list if you want, but just asking to keep focusing on, making smart financial decisions for the future. Thank you.
Hi, Sue Griffin. I have a question based on that. It's not directed at that. It's really more of a budget question. If I overstep, please let me know and I'll follow whatever procedure there is to answer my question. If I understood what they said correctly, we are supposing that there are, we're basing this on the vertical capacity of having 25 students in a classroom, and also the horizontal capacity of having 11 elementary schools. Do we have the budget in the future 5 years to maintain that? And just planning forward, that's what I understood to be presented would be that all of those schools would remain open. That's my question. I don't expect an answer right now, but moving into the budget cycle, I would expect something to come from that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vera Paseki. I Shire Drive, Middletown. Sorry, there's a computer here, so I don't usually use notes, but just first off, I know everybody keeps asking whether you've seen the slides in advance, and quite honestly, I feel like the administration should see everything in advance, because what I just saw was really disappointing. Because from a baseline, it assumes that the special needs classes are all staying as is, which means those kids will continue to zigzag across the community. So I would hope the administration would talk to them about what their plans and goals are, which was to eliminate that to a certain extent, as much as you could. You can't have a special needs class in every school, but so I would have been very happy to have you guys talk to Haber in advance, so I'm not quite sure why everybody is upset about that. But anyways, as something separate, completely, nobody else may be interested, but just something that I've been raising up the chain of command, and I'm hoping the board would listen and maybe make a change. It probably will not impact my daughter at this point, but I think it may help others coming up the road. Currently, in the high schools, all teachers are assigned duties. I should have brought my reading glasses. During blocks 3 and 4, what used to happen in the past is there were some open, welcoming classrooms where kids could go if they didn't have anything to do. Those classrooms don't exist anymore. And it's exacerbated by the fact that seniors leave blocks 3 and 4, which leaves a lot of kids behind. I know Mrs. Tobacco made that point when you were voting on it initially. There are kids being left behind. And although I appreciate the individual efforts they are trying to make for my daughter, who is lonely and sad and sitting alone a lot, I think it would be very helpful if we could at least have one teacher have a duty to have a welcoming classroom. did a little research, and I asked, I have some quotes from graduates. An overachiever, athletic, academic, got a full ride to college. Quote, Miss Castor's room saved me. When the pressure was too much, I could go and decompress. Another quote, LB, that's light bodies, room, was where I went when I needed someone to talk to and get away. Coach White's room was fun and gave me something to do. She made sure I wasn't lonely. That was my daughter. That room doesn't exist. An existing art student, there's nowhere to go. I usually leave school or just walk around. The LLD program at North used to sit in Mr. Hoffman's classroom, and they were able to socialize, and a lot of athletes would come in and socialize with them. That doesn't exist. They now sit in the cafeteria, which is loud, or some just wander around. So they would also like a room, even if they socialize with themselves, amongst themselves. Even Mr. Cullen, when I spoke to him, mentioned how Mr. Hoffman's room really helped him when he was a principal at High School North. So again, although I appreciate the individual efforts that are being made for my daughter, quite honestly, I considered quitting working and pulling her out every blocks 3 and 4 because she was so lost and alone. The district is now paying for a para to help her during blocks 3 and 4. She doesn't need it for academics, but she needs it for the social time because she's so alone. So again, I don't necessarily expect it to help my daughter, but I do think that's a big loss. And I think it's very distressing to sit in an IEP meeting at South and talk about your child being in crisis. And
Ms. Zaki, I don't mean to interrupt.
I'm done. But listen to administrators talk about the need to cover bathrooms and parking lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm not sure, Mrs. Secretary, are you saying that there's no teachers having advisory classrooms open?
Not blocks 3 and 4.
Isn't for advisory?
That doesn't exist anymore.
Teachers have office hours.
Teachers still have office hours.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Renner. I'm a Middletown resident. I just had a question. A lot of us are really interested in tonight's data because of what happened last March with the proposal of school closures. During that, there were 2 elementary schools and a middle school and a proposal of redistricting for the high schools. Was that data for the middle schools and high schools not looked at as part of this analysis? Is that something that, I know that we're not commenting at this time on whether or not this will lead to any sort of school closures, but if that was ever proposed in the future for anything at the middle school and high school level, and there was no data available, that would seem like a big gap. So I just want to ask why the data, or why that was not included in the analysis when overcrowding was brought up as a reason for some of the school closures last spring.
JC Music, Middletown. I have 4 questions that don't necessarily need a response right now, but I was part of a different conversation talking about classroom sizes just the other day, so we were waiting on this study quite anxiously. So I have 4 questions. My first one was, there was talk about moving children in clusters to keep them with their friends, so not alone. But I was looking at the numbers and I saw a couple times where it looked like just 1 student from a grade level was being moved. I'm just curious if there would be clarification on what that means as far as clusters versus 1, because it's been a while since I took math, but 1 does not seem like a cluster. So I'd like some clarification on that. Number 2 is there's been talk of schools closing, and as informative as this report was, will there be a new report done if schools start to close? Because I feel like that would change the analytics of availability and what rooms would be available for more students versus not having them if schools start to close. So Would there be a new study if we do see schools closing in the immediate future? Number 3, will the report be available to the public? And number 4 is, are we going to have access to the raw data that was used to assemble the recommendations in the report that we just saw at the presentation? Because it would be interesting to see the raw data as well. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Laura Act, Middletown. I really had no intent on speaking tonight, but I have to say I am extremely disappointed with that presentation. I don't know if I'm the only one that was expecting something much more robust. I was under the impression that there was going to be multiple solutions presented to us, including redistricting, but also the potential to close schools and how that would impact the district. The overcrowding in Thompson was not addressed at all. We've spent a lot of money for this. We waited a long time for this. And again, and also to echo, you talked about moving clusters of kids. You're talking about moving 1, 3, 5. I'm extremely disappointed with this presentation, how long we got to see this information. So I would like to know, it sounded like what was presented to the community, that there was going to be multiple scenarios presented, and it seems like the redistricting is only one, so I'm trying to understand where that gap is. We just kind of pivoted from closing schools to now this, and if we're going to close schools, where is that data coming from? How are we understanding how that's impacting? We didn't talk anything about like facilities, costs, upgrades to schools. Like, I don't understand what's going on, honestly. I'm very disappointed.
Amber Luspinos, Middletown. I also just want to echo, I'm sitting out there, and to my understanding in last April, when the strategic committee started, that this, and I understand, Dr. Alphone, that this is just one piece of the puzzle, but my understanding was that you hired an outside company to come in and look at our district. What I'm seeing tonight is that they looked at our elementary schools for 6 months. That's not our district. Our district, that's 1/3 of our district. And my math may not be right, but it's 1/3 of our district that they looked at. They didn't look at the middle schools, they didn't look at the high school. So I guess I'm more upset. I'm nothing against the company. They did, I guess, what they were hired to do. But I'm upset over the cost that I don't remember right now the exact cost, but I know that it was a large amount of money that was given to them to do this, and they only looked at our elementary school. So I'm not sure how that is fitting into our strategic plan for the upcoming year or the 5-year plan of what's gonna happen to the middle schools and the high schools. In 5 years, my kids will be gone, but still, I don't understand how, as a board, you can submit this to the public without taking account in the rest of the district and say it's a district strategic plan when it's really an elementary when it's really an elementary plan and not a district plan. So, and again, maybe that I misunderstood what their job was or what you said their job was going to be last April. I might have misunderstood that, but I understood it as a district, not just at the elementary level.
Hi, Kristen Rooney, Middletown. Just the amount of money we were talking about, it's $24,000 that was paid for the report. My question was just about procedures of the meeting. As far as the public comment, is that just going to be for tonight that you're limiting just to one? Or is that going to be going forward? Because it seemed like not everybody knew that there was going to be just one.
That's the way the agenda was created. It's the first time.
Okay.
But we'll address it.
Okay, so that's not going to be how it is going forward?
I would hope not. We've always had.
So how does the agenda, who makes the agenda? Who makes the agenda? Sorry? Okay. So I'm hoping that was a mistake, but do you want me to send an email to follow up?
No, we'll look into it and take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Scott McPherson, Middletown resident. Are we going to get the PowerPoint put up on the website tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it in my superintendent's report.
And are they also going to produce an actual report that's going to be made available to the public?
This is what they're providing to us, as far as I know.
That's it.
The PowerPoint, that's it?
Yeah, from what I understand. So,
Yeah.
but I will see clarity tomorrow. This is what we received.
Now, I've looked at many other school districts that have hired Ross Tabor and Associates to do these types of reports, and they produce an actual report. So I would hope that if we spend $24,000, we push them to produce an actual report, not just PowerPoint slides. So with respect to the parents of students that are impacted by what was presented tonight, I feel the way you feel. I felt it last March when my children's school was going to be closed. We cannot allow the fact that there was two schools slated for closure, three schools slated for closure last year versus what was presented tonight to stop us, the public, the parents, from coalescing together and coming together. It's not us versus you, or you versus us. We're all in this together because the point is for us to make a better life and a better education for our children. Let's not forget that important goal. Thank you.
Katie Littlepage, Middletown. I just have a quick question, just on logistics, how it works. So when the public was upset that there was only one opportunity for public comment tonight, I heard Ms. Minuis say, or Mr. Supra, Ms. Minuis say motion for a second public comment tonight, and Mr. Sokorowski said second, but then there was no vote. Is there supposed to be a vote when a board member puts a motion and another board member seconds it?
Yes, there is.
I never heard a motion, but the mic is open now. You can speak to whatever you want. I'm not telling anybody you can't speak to any topic you want. So the mic is open.
I think so that didn't answer my question. So can you first answer the question? If a board member puts forward a motion and then a second board member seconds that motion, is there supposed to be a vote?
Yes.
If the chair recognizes the person speaking, there's a motion in a second, yes, there should be discussion and call. But I will tell you that I did not hear anyone make a motion.
Could everyone raise their hand if they heard?
So I'll make my motion again to have a second public comment.
This is public comment now. So we
Yes,
can
but
have
I'm
public
talking
comment.
about-
And you can make your motion after, Ms. Minuis.
So, Mr. Burns, you said that if a board member is recognized by the chair and then a second board member seconds it, then by policy, there's supposed to be a vote?
Yes.
I would just like us to follow the policy instead of what you want to do. So, I can't hear anything you're saying.
The motion has to be made once the public comment section is closed. This is public comment. You can speak to it.
It has
When
to be
the
made,
public-
or if it I'm just asking because I don't know, I'm just a member of the public. Can a board member at any time in a meeting make a motion for anything, and a second board member second it, and then is there a vote? Or what is the policy? I don't know, I'm asking.
Typically, motions are made during new or old business, or they're part of the agenda that was already written. This is not a portion of the meeting that generally motions are made by members of the board, because this is the public's opportunity to tell the board anything that they have concerns about what's going on in Middletown, or anything else. But generally, motions by the board are made either pursuant to the agenda or during old or new business. That's generally when motions of the body are made.
I understand that's generally, but I'm asking us to follow policy.
Well, that's generally the policy of how meetings are run.
Is it the policy or is it generally the policy? You understand that you're speaking very murky terms.
I don't understand the difference, but I can say under...
I think I'm not alone on this. I hear the crowd. This is a public meeting. I just want us to follow what policy. Can you show me a policy? Are you versed on it? Mr. Aveda, you are the president. I would hope you would be versed on policy as the president to take your role seriously. Mr. Burns, you are the attorney. It seems like you do not know what the policy is.
Now, what I stated is that the body makes motions either pursuant to the agenda or during old and new business. That is how meetings are run pursuant to Robert's rules. This is neither an motion on the agenda that was pre-written, it is not old business, it is not new business. This is public comment. If a board member would like to make a motion following public comment during the business section of the board, they have the absolute ability to do that.
Yeah,
We're not gonna have any shouting from the audience.
she made the motion before
This is
public.
not, excuse me, this is not public discussion now.
She
It's
made-
public comment. So
See, now that's also murky because I don't know. We've been able to do
The
questions and
attorney
answers.
just answered your question.
No, he
After the
didn't.
public comment.
He did not
you
answer my
entertained a
question.
motion. Did you not hear him? That's what he said.
Well, that was very rude, Mr. Aveda.
Thank you.
I would expect more decorum from a board president.
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on any issue, topic, comment? No? Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca Lara, Middletown resident. I'll keep this quick. I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything. The presentation, I think some people have touched on it, but I'm questioning how that's resolving the issue that started all of this, which was the budget and needing to close schools. So if that could get discussed or touched on at some point, that would be great. Outside of that, I just have one other request. It's about the school lunches. They're really bad. I have to pick up my daughter from the school probably once every 2 weeks because she eats the school lunch and is sick. I can't handle it anymore. I try to pack her lunch, but she gets the cookies. She's in 3rd grade. Why does she have open access to cookies? I don't understand. So it's just, I would really like if there could be some sort of discussion, some sort of committee or someone looking at it to not give so many junk food options to little kids.
You can actually email Jessica Ritz.
Jessica Ritz?
Yes. She's
Okay.
the director. Children, you can have her put a restriction on your child's account.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yes, I've actually done that with my son.
Okay.
So he can order 5 cookies.
Yeah, she'll eat 3 cookies. And
So you can definitely email her, and she will place that restriction on your child's account.
okay, Jessica Ritz. Okay, thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Amber Espinos again. I just have one comment or question. I don't know if it can get answered or not. So last April, we all sat here and we were all told schools were closing, everybody got in an uproar, schools didn't close, the strategic plan came into a place. Now we're in the end of January, we're seeing this first presentation of what the plan is, or data for a plan. Again, I might be murky on my understanding of what's happening. But are we, I guess my question is, are we going to be in the same place in April that we were last April? Or if there is going to be some sort of massive change, whether it be redistricting or whether it be school closings, are we gonna find out before April, or should we assume it's status quo through next year? Or, because I think finding out in April again is really poor planning on everyone's parts. Because I thought that this was supposed to alleviate all that, but we're at the end of January, and everybody here and people who aren't here still have lots and lots of questions of what's going to happen next year due to the fact of what happened last year. So I'm just wondering if there is going to be any sort of explanation or any idea of what may be happening with our schools prior to the end of this school year leading into September.
Anyone else?
No. Nothing to report on the president's report today. Superintendent's report?
Thank you. A couple of things that I just want to touch upon from a couple of the comments that were made. This is a piece of data, as I mentioned earlier. This is predicated on some of the priorities that we shared with Mr. Haber on the front end, and it was communicated loud and clear by the community that community schools were valued. So we asked him to frame out his recommendations based on that factor. So that is a really important piece of the puzzle, because as you can see, this was based on maintaining 11 elementary schools. And that was from a communicated priority that we gave to him. I also want to address the middle school situation. The middle school, we always try with the path of least resistance, right? And that is what his proposal showed, a path of least resistance, moving as few students as possible. Certainly, some of that data in regards to moving 1-2 kids per grade level is a recommendation only, right? So we have to take a look at that, because the board and the administration with community input has to determine, is this the best plan, right? Is this viable? Now, based on our population, yes, it will help to correct some of the inequities that we're seeing and create more logical lines. And the question of, well, why didn't anything with middle school happen? Well, by default, two things. If you take some of those recommendations and you put them in place, some of those middle school feeder patterns eventually change. However, the one recommendation, if you notice, it came on, I think, the second to last slide, is they are making a recommendation for us to re-examine our feeder patterns out of 5th grade, going into 6th grade. And that does start to address those inequities in middle school. But that will take time, because all of those feeder pattern changes, if you make the change from 5th to 6th grade, grandfathering in 7th and 8th grade, have to roll up over successive years. So this was important because your elementary population, because you're incurring new kindergartners, new pre-K kids, really more so kindergartner for us, that sets the foundation for your population moving forward. You don't get tons and tons of kids organically moving in year after year. That's going to increase your volume so drastically, even with the new developments that were taken into consideration, because they do factor that in. They consult with the township on those housing projects, but they only project out 5 years. That any good demographer only projects out 5 years. So I just wanted to address those things, that when we initially met with Ross Haber, we took the feedback from those forums in regards to what people value in Middletown, and we asked him to frame this through the lens of that. So I just wanted to kind of give you some perspective on why this data was presented in the way that it was. The other piece is, we're in a really different position than we were last year financially, right? If you recall, rewinding, I don't like to rehash the past too much, but we were in a budget deficit that we were able to fortunately get some relief from. So that puts us in a different position to make decisions moving forward. That presentation that he gave will post on the website tomorrow. We'll also put the email address for people to answer questions, so that way we can start that process. As Mr. Haber said, they're going to come back and do a second forum. We want people to be able to go look at this data, digest it, ask questions. We're going to reconvene strategic planning and our subcommittees. The first meeting will be February 18th. I'm going to email the subcommittees by the end of this week, giving them that information, because this will be an important piece of data that we use for those conversations. So I just kind of want to give the overview of the framework. We are still on good track to, get that strategic plan completed, hopefully by the end of the year, and the 5 years would obviously start with the next school year. Now, for my regular update, I just want to kind of give that overview. I just want to thank everybody for, again, their cooperation with the large amount of snow and ice that we received. So thank you for being patient. We tried to make the call as early as possible. Hopefully you had a nice snow day with your kids. Again, this morning with the delayed opening, we always, as I said last time, will err on the side of caution while making sure that, we get kids to school when we can. Today, having it delayed, we wanted to make sure that we could get all of our staff. We have over 1,000 people coming to us, and also ensure that our kids had enough time to get safely into school and not in the dark and with ice. And it gave our grounds people and the township a little more time to get things up and running. Thank you to our grounds people who worked really hard this weekend. They did an amazing job for the amount of snow and property we have. And also to the township, I was on calls with them all weekend, kind of planning how we were going to move forward, and they were providing us updates on, their efforts to ensure that the roads were clear and safe for the community and how that impacted schools. So thank you. Unfortunately with snow comes the loss of one of our days. We have 2 snow days built in. We're going to see what happens before we make any decision on which day. There's been some discussion over, should we do the Memorial Day first and then Easter Monday? We're supposed to get another snowstorm this weekend. I'm not going to jinx us, but we're not going to make any calendar changes until we kind of wait till the lion's share of the winter is over. But just know that one of those snow days we've already used. We have 1 more left, which means anything thereafter would extend the last day of the school year. But we'll continue to communicate about that as we see how the rest of the winter plays out. Our district calendar for next year is going to hopefully be on our February agenda. We have our calendar committee meeting on February 3rd. We have asked the buildings to make some recommendations for parents to sit on the committee. We have union representation, board representation, admin representation, and we will start to hammer that out so we can get that out to the community in February for planning purposes. This month, we also held 2 superintendent roundtable meetings, elementary and secondary. These meetings include students, staff, parents, administrators, and Board of Ed members. A variety of topics were discussed and the sessions were valuable. Again, our kids are great. They are very, very willing to talk and share about their experiences in a room full of adults. So kudos to you parents for raising kids that are self-advocating and certainly wanting to be part of solutions. So we had 2 really great sessions. Due to the district having been closed on Monday, the high school midterm exam schedule was adjusted. We communicated that early on so that our high school students had the kind of plan in place so they knew how to budget out their time and continue to prepare for those midterms. So thank you to Mr. Cullen for getting that up and running. The last thing that I just wanted to share briefly, and Shannon, if you could just put up that one-page document, that 2-pager that I shared with the committee reports. We heard from the community, from multiple members that, would committee minutes be shared? And we were trying to find a way to do that and also accommodate if I have a question, or how do we get those questions that are being asked out to the school community. So what I've drafted and shared with the board, and I'm going to share with you now, is a front and a back document. That's all it would be, where we have a bulleted kind of synopsis of each committee minutes. That way you know what was reported out on, the community knows what was reported out on. And then the second page would be a your questions answered section. I have Mr. Cullen, who's going to be my stenographer. He's going to be writing down the questions. And this will be published sometime during the week after the second board meeting, because we need to get through the workshop and this meeting. And then we'll bring hard copies. It'll always be a month behind for the hard copies, but to the meeting, so people can have them. But we'll post them on the website probably within a week, because we need time to finish preparing it and get the questions framed out. But hopefully this helps to accommodate some of those concerns and requests that people had for information. So it's a first pass, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to email me. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Moving along, I need a motion to approve A through D.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
I have to abstain from some of them. Can we do them? I have to abstain from some of them because I wasn't at the committee. So can we do like the January ones together and the December ones together?
Just say which one you're
What is on your?
I'm abstaining from A and B and no. A, B, and C, actually.
Yes, I have to abstain from A and B as well.
It's A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. Thank you, Ms. Torres.
Thank you.
All right, motion to approve?
Yes.
Motion. Second.
The motion's been made, seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? As noted. Next, I need a motion to approve item 9B.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Need a motion to approve 10A through K?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I need a motion to approve 11A through J.
Mr. Anita, we were going to do a roll call vote on B and C. We were going to do a roll call vote on B and C.
So then, the motion.
We'll do a motion to approve 11A and then B through J.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No on letter A, no on yes, and yes on no.
Yes.
roll call for A, B, and C?
Just B and C.
Yeah, I need a roll call on 11B.
We need a motion.
Motion. Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Minimes. B. Mrs. Skolasky.
Yes.
Mr. Soporowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco.
I'm abstaining because I was not here for the appeal.
Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mrs. Weinstein.
Yes.
Mrs. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Capone.
Yes.
Mr. Avita.
Yes.
And a motion and a second on C.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Minimes.
Yes.
Mrs. Skolasky.
Yes.
Mr. Soporowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco.
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here for the appeal.
Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mrs. Weinstein.
Yes.
Mrs. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Capone.
Yes.
Mr. Avita.
Yes. Need a motion to approve 11K, 1 through 17.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, moving along. Old business.
Yes, I would just like to reiterate what Dr. Alphonse said about the snow removal. I think our custodians and maintenance department did a great job, and I also would like to commend the township for the job that they've done. Gotten a lot of complaints. A few issues where people said it was a little, not plowed enough, but I think today with the sun coming out, it helped a little bit, but I think we did a great job.
There's a lot of stuff.
And I'll just reiterate with the public comment, I do believe it was just simply an oversight. It was not intentional at all by any person at all, so we apologize and we will rectify it for the next meeting.
Anything else for old business? New business?
I have last week, our meeting came up about Lynbrook Annex, and I had a few parents reach out to me to say that they were told by Mrs. Granger from the beginning of March.
We can't hear.
I'm sorry. September, so, sorry. I had a few parents who reached out to me to say that they watched a meeting last week and regarding Lynbrook Annex, that they had been told by, I think, Mrs. Granger that it was going to be put in March. And then,
We have not been given that target date by facilities yet, but we can find out, but that has not been communicated to me.
okay.
I also like to make a request for the meeting videos of the Board of Education. November 25th workshop voting meeting, the December 16th voting meeting, and January's workshop meeting is still not posted on the Board of Ed website. If we can get that done as soon as possible, as well as tonight's meeting, I would really appreciate that so that the community can go back and see what was discussed.
One second tonight.
Any other old business? New business.
Yes, I have new business. Whether there's anybody that would like to make a comment or not, I still would like to make the motion to have a second public comment tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Now, other new business, I would like to let the community know of a few school events that are taking place. And I'm hoping that we could get together and support each other's school events. If anybody out there has any that I'm not mentioning, because I don't have everybody's, please feel free to shoot me an email. But it would be great if we could get our community together and support each other. Our PTAs and PTOs and PFAs that do these events, they work hard and the money goes to our kids. And a lot of it goes to educational programs, trips, anything that enhances their education. So I'm going to be letting you know on April 24th, Bay Shore is having a gift auction at 5 o'clock. If you're interested, you can email bayshore.giftauction@gmail.com. On April 25th, Bayview is having a casino night and gift auction. You can get information from them by going on the Bayview website. On April 30th, Thorn Luck Be a Lion will be holding their annual gift auction on April 30th, Lakeside Manor. It's a sit-down dinner. For information, you can email ptathornmiddleschool@gmail.com. And there are a few elementary schools that are having raffles the month of February and March. It's $10 a ticket, and they're raffling gift cards every day of the month. And they are Leonardo, New Monmouth, and Navasink that I have right now, if anybody, and Bay Shore. So if anybody's interested, you could go to those school websites and get the information. It's good fundraising, the money all goes to the kids. And again, if anybody else has their information on their events, please don't hesitate to email me, because I do like to participate, and I'm sure some of the other members would like to also. And it also, for the people that are watching at home, they get the information, and maybe we could really boost these fundraisers up, because it does all go to our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two topics in the business one.
Sure.
Just coming out of some comments that I've gotten from the community from sitting up here and prior, when I actually came in the meeting tonight, I think that it would be time for us to do a review of our food service provider, not only the type of food that we're serving to the children during the day, making sure that it's providing top nutrition, but how they're kind of setting up their options to ensure that if someone is buying or buying something that's on the healthier side, it's going to make them sick. Hopefully we can work with who we have, but if not, it would be great to RFP a provider that might have better options for our kids. Secondly, this is something that I've been hearing a lot, not only from parent population, but teachers as well. I think we need to take a really hard look at the iReady program this year. I am failing to see how the cost warrants any type of benefit. I think especially at the younger grades, putting children on a computer to kind of go through topics that don't align with their day-to-day curriculum, where they're not having any help from the adults that they're sitting with, but rather have to move forward on their own. And also are being benchmarked not really based on necessarily what they're learning in the classroom is not super helpful. It's also not inexpensive. So I think that we have very competent teachers here that are capable of benchmarking their students without a screen. And I would love to see us kind of pull back on some of those additional evaluations that I think are taking away from last time. So I would like to focus on seeing if we would be able to possibly remove that from the budget for next year. I'm sure the money could be put to better use, keep the kids off the screens for what seems to be somewhat unnecessary.
I would second that. Thank you. Was that a motion?
Do I need to say motion? In my right hand, making a motion? For both. Yes, for both. One for the food service and one for iReady.
I would second that already.
Can we start with the first one? What was the first one? Food service. What are we doing?
Review and then potential subsequent RFP.
If I can make a suggestion.
That's not technically a motion, that was just a direction to the administration to start reviewing it, and then you want to put it on the street.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step would be to meet the food service committee, which I think that would be the first step, and we can discuss from there. That's logical. Yes, yes.
We'll discuss it in committee. Anything else?
So now, hang on, wait a minute, now we're done with the food service, can we go to the iReady one? What do you want to do with that one?
I believe we need to make a motion and we have a second, so that we
No,
can.
I didn't hear the motion, neither did Dr. Alton. We just need to know what the motion is, I'm sorry.
The motion is to remove iReady from the school system and better use the funds for something at the lower level that is not on a screen.
I think it was discussed at the curriculum committee meeting that they are pursuing other things and are looking to potentially not have it be present at the lower grade levels. I think that was reported out by
I
Mrs.
just think the
Green.
main thing is that we want to get away from having kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders on computers, getting assessments from it. And then that one day of assessments or 2 days of assessments, they're judging their schooling career on. It's kind of taking it out of the teacher's hands.
It's not, it's a benchmarking tool. So benchmark demonstrates growth. It's not finite data in the sense of judging or making any, it's information to help inform decision-making based on growth over time. So we are required to have some kind of benchmarking tool in place, and that doesn't necessarily have to be digital for our youngest students, but certainly when we get to our third grade and above, there is a certain amount of data that teachers need at their fingertips, and we do need to have a digital component. We are investigating other alternatives that aren't as screen heavy as iReady is. They have a requirement for the amount of time kids should be on, in the platform practicing, and we are looking to break free from that. But that is being talked about in curriculum. I know that for a fact.
I have a clarifying question.
Let me clarify the motion because, no, it wasn't because I understand you can't hear.
And Mr. Burns, you need to speak in your microphone.
To clarify the motion is to remove iReady from the 2026-2027 budget. That's what the motion is, but it has to be pendant on contract review and everything else. But the board member's motion was to remove iReady from the 2026-2027 budget.
And we have a second to.
And Mr. Zakrowski second.
So,
If he understood that motion.
yeah, now let's continue with the discussion.
Yeah, I have a point of clarification, and I'm not trying to prejudge anything, but when we discussed this in the curriculum meeting, as Mrs. Alphone just stated, we're reviewing iReady and perhaps moving to a different benchmarking platform. But my clarifying question is, you just want to move it completely, or are you upset with the added component of doing however many minutes it is of iReady at home? I think these are two separate things, right? At some point, we're going to have to grapple with the fact that if iReady is not what we determine to be a suitable benchmarking program, we need some other type of benchmarking program to then assist and drive individualized instruction. That's what we spent a good amount of time talking about, not only in this past curriculum meeting, to which I think we are now moving towards evaluating others, but in last year's curriculum meetings as well. I think that's very different to what we've been hearing from parents voicing concern about the fact that when students are coming home, part of their homework is also then to do so many minutes of iReady and ELA and math. So I'm a little confused as to what we're actually voting on here.
I think our component is just one piece, but also from feedback from educators that I've received, that the benchmarking doesn't feel accurate because it does not align with what they're actually teaching. And they're concerned about children being benchmarked on screens when they don't have the ability necessarily to use that platform properly for benchmarking purposes. So the idea is if we are required to constantly benchmark students in addition to DIBELS and then the actual tests that they take based on what they learn, it would probably make sense that it was aligned with the actual curriculum and off of the screen. Something that I think that we could actually probably have teachers build themselves because they should know what the students should be learning and they sit with them all the time. So I think overall the program in general seems like from feedback not only from parents but also staff members that might not be comfortable sharing that information is that the whole program has been somewhat of a failure and it's actually also taking away a lot from instructional time. So I think overall I understand that we're looking at new options, but I know that iReady was also still in somewhat of a consideration set, and I just don't believe from what I've heard from multiple sides of the fence that it should be.
mean, I would say at this point, a shared curriculum, I think it needs to go back to curriculum at this point to continue discussing this instead of making a very quick decision, because then it leaves us again with no benchmarking program. I understand not everything's perfect, but I think that based on what we discussed and what administration is telling us is that this is way too preliminary to figure out what other program we're gonna move to. So instead of making what I would consider at this point too rash of a decision and then handcuff us into something that we're not ready to move into a new program, I think we need to continue discussing it.
What if we were to try to focus on getting some sort of a handwritten assessment ready for next year?
Some kind of
Getting a handwritten assessment for next year, something that's done on pen and paper.
So for K through 2, we are investigating that. For grades 3, 4, and 5, they will take a digital assessment with the NJSLA. Therefore, I think we would be remiss if we didn't provide them the opportunity to have some kind of testing experience online. So our plan is to reevaluate our K-2 to get as much of that with paper and pencil as possible, and then also have that become actionable for the teacher, because that's the other piece. Is yeah, you can collect all this data by hand, but then what are you doing with it? How are you taking that data and using it to make decisions, not only for individual learners, but for grade levels, classrooms, et cetera? And also, how are you tracking growth over time and allowing that data to move with the student year after year? So it's not just as simple as saying, you know, we don't want the students to be on screens. I agree with that for our K-2 learners, and I think we got away from that because of the COVID era where everybody was forced to be there. But we are recognizing the fact that K-2, we want human interaction assessment, but for 3, 4, 5, and above, it would not be my recommendation to move away from a digital benchmarking tool. Yes, maybe a digital practice tool in the way that it's framed now, but a benchmarking tool, that would, I believe, speaking from experience, become a hardship for our teachers because they wouldn't have data at their fingertips, and we would also not be preparing our kids adequately to perform to the best of their ability having an electronic testing experience. That's my recommendation.
Do we not have other digital options that we're reviewing? I'm just wondering why it can't be removed from the consideration set if we have multiple other options, some digital and some not. If it just says, I'm sorry, I feel like this is right here in my face. I thought that we were looking at other digital options.
We are.
So is there a way that we can just pull them out of the consideration set so that we can find something new and better that first replace something that doesn't seem like it has been working very well for us?
Like I said, I think, or as Mrs. Wright said, I think it's preliminary right now. There are a limited number out there that are adaptive and also provide the data that we need for small group instruction. You know, we are piloting a second tool, which is much less costly and also does not have the time recommendations for practice outside of the benchmarking tool. So that's a viable option. But I think, you know, we also have a contract with Linkit because they do our data warehousing. However, their assessments currently are not adaptive. That is the one, you know, feature that is a preventer. So like Mrs. Wright said, I think we can bring this back to the curriculum committee for further conversation, and nothing is set in stone in the budget. We haven't approved anything. So right now, there's basically a placeholder for some type of digital tool for benchmarking in the budget. And we are investigating all kinds of options.
So can I,
Yeah.
just correct me if I'm wrong, from what I understood with the curriculum committee, that they were already very aware of discussing the issues with iReady, both from the parent and staff and child's point of view, and that there were things in place to replace it, and that was looked at for next year. Yeah, so I would respectfully try to hold off if we can on the motion, just to get more information from the committee.
That's what, we can table it and bring it back into committee. I think the idea is just to remove it from the consideration set, but it's fine to be tabled.
Yeah, we could discuss it in committee and then we'll bring it back at the next workshop to discuss it further.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, based on our conversations with kids at our superintendent's roundtable forums, we hear them loud and clear. They don't love it. And while I think the benchmarking tool is okay. It's the My Pathway and the minute requirement that's causing a hardship. So we're looking for a tool that doesn't have those features. And also, in the process, save money.
So just to be clear, and then the person moving the motion agreed to a voluntary withdrawal, referral to the committee. Does the person who seconded agree to?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion is withdrawn and referred to committee.
Any other new business before we move on to public comment? Okay, now we'll open it up again to public comment.
Hi, Kristen Rooney, Middletown. Just to piggyback off of the iReady conversation, I would say definitely from kids' perspective, they don't like doing it at home, as you know. And I would just also say to parents, if you have an area where there's a concern that your child might need help in a certain area, it's very good at pinpointing that. So I would be afraid to lose the ability to do that because kids will suffer. And if there's something better, sure. I also think we have to recognize modern technology and that not everything can be on paper, but I agree that most things in schools should be. But just having had meetings and had to ask questions about different things in math, while I don't love that they can't go back and see the specific questions, because that's something I think that's intellectual property with iReady, they are able to go and pinpoint and say, yes, this skill that you were taught in 3rd grade, like you can see now that that's still an issue. And that is very, very valuable for students who need it. So I think we just need to think about the gamut of students that are maybe, you know, some don't have an issue and then others do. So I've seen where it could be helpful. But I would just have to say for my daughter that she does not want to do it for homework. So thank you. Have a good night.
Good evening, guys. I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. Welcome to the new board
sorry, could you
members.
please state your
Welcome
name,
to
please?
Mr. Avita. It's good to see you back. It's good to see you back as president. Thank you for your service. So this is just a simple process question.
Yeah, can you please state your name and address?
Mike Magipinto, Buchanan Boulevard. How do you plan on doing, Mr. Avita, open sessions for future meetings? And what I mean by that is it going to be a give and take where the person at the mic can actually ask a question and get a response back? You know, I know previous boards have done things differently, so I just wanted to know, for future reference, how you want to set it up. I know that there was a slip up just with the way it was printed on tonight's agenda, and that's fine, but I just want to know, and I think we would all like to know just how you want to set it up for the future.
So questions should be directed to me, and then I can defer them to Dr. Alpha or someone else. Or if we cannot answer them at the meeting, we'll get back to you and we'll answer the questions.
Okay,
At a later time, either independently, depending on the question, or publicly.
So there will at least be an attempt made to answer the question at the time it's asked,
Yes.
if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jeff Warshaw in Middletown. I just would hope that the board and the administration would get provide some clarity on, in terms of the Haber report, the deliverables, what we paid for. Like someone said earlier, you know, I reviewed a bunch of other similar reports they did for other districts, and there was a much more robust report provided. I think having a better understanding of the assumptions and methodologies used in the report would help the board better assess the analysis that was provided, as well as the underlying data. If we can get that as well, that would be super helpful. I'd like to prevent Bernie Dawes from having to back into all of the numbers that were provided, so if we can save him some hours of his own time, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Finally, Daniel Jewell, Valley Drive, Atlantic Islands. Tonight. So I had a few minutes to digest the Haber report. Awesome work, great job. 10 out of 10, no notes. Actually, no, I did have a few notes. First, starting with, so there's 15 some odd tables and charts in this report, yet lots of numbers in those charts. Not a single one of them has any units on them. So you're kind of, as the reader, left to assume what are we exactly talking about here. So just, if they could add some units, I think it would make it a lot easier to understand. And then there's the problem statement slide, which seems to me a little ill-prepared. It, once again, shows a bunch of numbers that don't have units, that seem to be the surplus and deficits of class and numbers per school based, or projected 5 years out into the future. But there's no definition of the assumption of what a class size is. I think they're assuming that my assumption is correct, that is the number of classes that were deficit or surplus on for the next 5 years. How big are those classes? And we're projecting 5 years out into the future. There's presumably some error in those estimates. Where's the equivalent of error bars on those numbers? There doesn't seem to be any. Also, what's the, so if we're rounding up class size, right? What is the cutoff for rounding up or rounding down to get to the numbers that are shown? All just seems to me a little ill-prepared, especially based on the amount of money that we paid for this. Apologies for all the cynicism. And later on in the presentation where we get to the proposed solutions, I mean, some of them I kind of can't help but feel a lot of empathy for some of those kids involved. There's a couple of instances where you have an individual second grader being moved from one school to another. And I mean, can you imagine telling one kid, sorry, we have an arbitrary cap on the number of kids per classroom, so you're going to need to move schools and find all new friends. I mean, that just seems mean. I guess that's it for my notes on the Haber report. Just one last comment on iReady. I do echo the comments about the iReady curriculars seeming to be misaligned with the curriculum. I mean, I only have a sample size of one, but it does seem like where you can have a child settling in school and then maybe not so much in the iReady. It's like, why are we misaligned there? Why are we teaching the things that are being used to benchmark kids? But I did want to push back a little bit on the screen time aspect of iReady. I mean, kids freaking love screens. Why not hijack that to increase their engagement and give them the best chance that they can have at doing a good job on the assessment. So, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Clausen, 318 Woodmere Avenue, Neptune, New Jersey. I am read interventionist at Bayshore. I just came to see the report. I did their university up here, but then the iReady came up. So I probably look at iReady data more than most people here. It's really my job. And I think I just want to point out Mrs. Wright's point that the MyPath, the instruction piece, the weekly thing, is very different from the 3 times a year when you're taking a benchmark. In the past many years, we had just the benchmark. And I would love to, like Mrs. Weinstein or Mr. Sobrowski, I can email you. I would love to meet with you anytime to give you more insight on iReady. The one thing I want to say is there's lots of different benchmarking systems, but when you keep the same one long term, the value of seeing one child's score from kindergarten through 8th grade, it's massive. Even if you could find another one, I kind of like this better, like IXL or STAR or MAP, I'm familiar with all of them. You're starting from, there's just so much value. Like when I have a kid coming in, I'm looking at their scores and their growth over multiple years. When you get another one, they're not exactly the same. So like on iReady, my kid might get this score, my children, and then they also take IXL, and it's slightly different. The important part is seeing the growth. Well, that's my job, and I love to talk about it, so I would be happy to reach out and talk about it more, but I do want to say that once we've had it for multiple years, the value is a lot, and you have to think about losing years of data that has followed a child. And that's totally separate from my path, which is like do it for 45 minutes a week, which is completely separate. And I think it actually costs a lot extra to do that part, so maybe just as a benchmark. But I just want to say there are like some teachers who are specifically like reading teachers, reading development teachers, interventionist teachers, and I would be happy to be a resource for anybody, because I also don't like teaching with screens and things like that, but there's a little more nuance to it. So I'm sorry, I'm very nervous, but I was like, oh no, don't get rid of it right now, like before we talk about it. So thank you.
Hello again, Jason Guzik, Middletown. Seems like 4 is my lucky number today, so I got 4 more points that I'd like to talk about today. The first is going back to the iReady and the screen time. I don't know if screen time is such a terrible thing, even at the K through 2 levels. As we continue towards a more digital future, I don't think that screen time should be wrapped up into this nuanced giant catch-all that it's a bad thing. You know, my kid watching YouTube versus doing something on iReady, both screen time, but vastly different definitions of what we're doing with that screen time. So I just think we should be careful on what we labeling screen time as such a bad thing. Number 2 is I think benchmarks are important. I don't think we should be abandoning the idea of benchmarks. If you don't have them, then how do you know if we are succeeding as a community or not? I also don't think we should be putting too much faith in whether a 6 or 7-year-old is saying, I like this or don't like it when it comes to school things, because there's a lot of things I didn't like when I was a kid, and they turned out to be incredibly important now that I recognize them as an adult. Number 3 is going back to the report. I'm going to follow up on the raw data request, not because I don't trust a 15-ish slide PowerPoint, but cherry picking data is a real thing, and I would feel better about seeing the actual data of a $24,000 report. Data versus information are 2 wildly different things. And 4 is a positive thing, is that I'm really enjoying that this board is doing a little more of a back and forth with the people out here in the stands. It was a lot colder, I feel like, in previous sessions, and there seems to be a lot more interaction, which for me, very much appreciated, actually hearing from the board what they're thinking when we are raising our concerns. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Melissa Grindell, Belford. First, I want to thank Ms. Minuis for sharing the school events. I really appreciate it. I'm a little concerned because last spring when we were talking about school closures, we were told that we have all this available space in the district to move students to, and we were going to close schools and close a middle school. On today's report, he didn't really talk about middle schools, but it is blaringly obvious that we don't have space in middle schools. And it just concerns me because maybe we have money now, but if we didn't vote to raise our taxes an insane amount, we would be intentionally overcrowding students based on a rash decision. And I don't think that was educated at all. And considering we're the Board of Education, I feel like we should have thought that process through. We were given a lot of bad information last year, and we were spoken to like it was fact. And now this year we get this report, and it doesn't look like any of our elementary schools really have all that much room in there to close to and move however many hundred students into other schools, let alone close a middle school when one middle school already has 900 kids in it. Like, that's crazy to me. The fact that we're not talking about if we're gonna close schools or not yet is really concerning, because we're gonna be back here again in April and we're gonna say, are we going to close middle schools? Are we not going to close middle schools? Are our 5th graders who are buying Bayshore stuff to get ready for their last year, are they not going to go to Bayshore anymore? Are they going to go to Thorne? Are they going to go to Thompson? Like, we don't know. And that's really scary, like, for our kids and for the parents. I think we really need to push this forward a little bit more and think about this, because last year we were about to make a huge decision based on really bad information. And that really scares me. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? No? Okay, I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Katie Little Page, Middletown. I just wanted to clear up, when I came up in the first public comment section, my point wasn't that I was upset that there wasn't 2 public comments. My point was that I just wanted clarity on, is it prohibited for a board member to make a motion at any point in the meeting? Or are there certain times where that's the only time a board member can make a motion? So I just wanted to clear that up and see if that can help me get a clearer answer, because I still don't understand I still don't think I have a clear answer. So is a board member permitted to make a motion at any point during the board meeting? For anything?
I'm going to try to answer this as clearly as possible. There is an agenda that is put out by the administration with the approval of the president. That has the specific order of business of the meeting. During certain sections, board members do not typically make motions because that is not the business section of the meeting, namely public comment, presentations or stuff. As somebody would be making a presentation like the Haber report tonight, it would be really different for a board member from whatever chairs they were in to make a motion in the middle of his report. That just doesn't make sense. So motions in the order of business follow the agenda. Board members are absolutely entitled to make motions during the business portion of the meeting, which is typically outlined in the agenda, and specifically for anything not on the agenda, that is during old business and new business.
So I heard you say the word typical. My question is, may a board member make a motion at any point during the meeting? Yes or no?
I've answered the question 3 times. I do apologize that you do not like my answer.
I'm just asking for a yes or a no. Because I'm a member of, this is a public meeting. Everyone, the 9 board members here are also members of the public who are sitting here unpaid as volunteers. So this should be a collaborative meeting. I'm only here for my children and also for all of the children of Middletown. I want what's best for them. And so for that, I would like to feel like this is a collaborative effort. So that's why I'm just trying to have clarity. I'm trying to speak to you, Mr. Burns. You're not even making eye contact. This is not collaborative.
You don't like.
It's not that I don't like. I'm just asking, may a board member make a motion at any point in the meeting, yes or no?
If the question, do you think it would be appropriate?
Let's end it here. We'll have to get back to you on that, all right? Obviously.
Is there a policy that can be sent to me, or?
We'll get back to you. Robert's the deadline.
Okay.
Do you have a question that you want to ask?
That was the question.
Okay. We'll get back to you on that.
I'm feeling very disrespected as a member. Excuse me. I'm feeling very disrespected as a member of the public who took time out of my day to be here and continues to take time out of my day to be here. And I'm, again, as I said,
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? How many opposed? We have 4 opposed.
I'm sorry, who's opposed? Please, it's hard for me to say, so Mrs.
Ms. Torres, Ms. Minuis, Mr. Saporowski, and Ms. Wright, all opposed.
And you have,
All 5 are in favor. Motion passes. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
I think the public